Hey guys, welcome back to our weekly live event every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Instagram. We're going to talk about real estate, investing, finance, business, and credit. Anything you would like to know about personal finance and growth, I'll be happy to help. Welcome back, guys. What's up, Suri? What's up, guys? What's up, Kick? What's up, Z? How you guys doing? How's everybody's day today? Are you Greek? I am not Greek. I am Mediterranean, though. So I do eat the same food. Grape leaves, pita bread, feta cheese. We got all the same stuff. What's up, guys? I'm doing good. How are you guys doing? I had a pretty good day. I've been kind of sick, but doing pretty good. End up getting a lot of stuff done. We're almost done with a project, the Safety Harbor project. It's been pretty good. I got one person rented out one of the units for the month. They cut me a check for $3,000. Got another guy that rented out the unit for a few months. He cut me a check for like $11,000. Got another person that rented out for 2 months. They cut me a check for $6,000. So this was a good month. I brought in about $20,000 on that new project, and it's not even finished yet. So they're like pre-deposits. So it's definitely good. I'm really happy about that. So remember, guys, those who ask to go live, I answer their questions first because it's a lot easier to answer questions face to face. We get to go more in depth with the questions and answers, and to get the most value for the person asking the question and everybody else listening. And then next, what I do is I focus on people that submit questions down in the DMs and into the questions section. And so that's basically the format that I go about our weekly live event. So what is my advice for single mothers? My advice for single mothers is the same. Is first question was, what is my advice for teenagers? The first thing I would say is don't move out and wait as long as possible for you to live in your family's house. The one thing my dad would say is this. He's like, if you're living at home and you're not saving your food expense, your rent, your electric, and all of your expenses that you would be spending having your own place, and if you're not saving that monthly, you have a major problem. And it made a lot of sense. So if you're not at minimum saving that plus extras, you have a spending problem. So make sure that for all the young people out there, you're hustling, you're saving your money, you're not buying stuff that's cool, and making sure you're saving that money so you can reinvest it. Regarding single mothers, I would say don't spend so much money for your kids. I know a lot of times you feel like you want to buy them stuff because it makes them feel good, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good more, it makes them feel good. So, and they're not going to remember it when they're older. What is going to matter is that you're saving your money, you're investing, you eventually have your own place to live and some rental properties. So when they're older, you're comfortable, they're comfortable, and you have a stable financial future. Because a lot of bad things that happen in people's lives is based off of not having a stability, financial stability, which causes a lot of bigger problems to come up in their life. So main focus should be having your finances stable so you can be able to develop and grow as people. That's right. Give them experiences, not things. Spend time together. Don't work like crazy to buy them stuff. You can work less and spend time together. And at the same time, when you're doing stuff to develop yourself financially, don't stick them in front of the TV and then you try to expand yourself financially. They should try to learn along the way with you so they can understand personal finances from a young age. So I used to go to work with my dad when I was younger, and I would be able to see and experience that stuff. So I was starting to absorb finance and business from a very young age. So that's why when I say, hey, ask me business questions, I give business advice all the time. I have an accounting firm that gives business advice to our clients. So, you start learning those things that I feel are like common sense, that 99% of people out there don't know these things, and it's a shame that they don't, but it doesn't mean it's ever too late to learn. So always learn, always try to grow. All right, let's look into it. All right. So I already answered that one. What's advice for teenagers? Save your money. Make sure that you're saving at least the amount of money that you would be spending paying rent, living outside of your parents' house. $203, same loan for rehab. $203K loan, you can use it for a rehab, but remember, it's required for it to be your primary residence, and you have to be using GCs for those loans to do the rehabs. So there's not like where I'm saying, hey, buy a duplex, live on one side and fix it up. Those are a lot of those things you're fixing up yourself. You're painting it yourself. You're adding the value, so you're saving a lot of the money. You're pocketing it, or you're hiring a handyman to do the work. When you hire a GC to do it, it's going to cost 3 to 4 times as much money as it would cost if you hired a handyman. So that's where you're pocketing the difference, because you're basically being your own GC, and you're learning what it's like to get these things fixed. So when you start leveling up and you're like in 10 units, 20 units, 30 units, when some GC is telling you something crazy that isn't right, you'll be able to call it out and be like, no, this is not right. Don't do this. And you'll be able to find someone that you do know is telling you the right stuff. So just because someone's a GC doesn't mean they have everything in order, and doesn't mean they're not going to try to make a ton of money off of you on one deal. Like this one GC tried to do that to me. We walked around together, and I said, we talked about it and said, this project's going to cost $60,000. And by the time he went back to his office, he's like, oh, well, no, it's going to cost $90,000. And I was like, no, it's not going to cost $90,000. And I didn't end up giving him the job, and he was mad. He's like, well, how come you're not giving me this job? I was like, I can't pay you $90,000 to do this job. I end up doing it myself and getting it done for $60,000. So you have to kind of know it, and unless you build your experience and put your time into it, you're not going to know it. Hey, what's up? I was actually born in Syria, too. Why do people think MBAs make them relevant? MBAs were relevant, say, like 20 years ago. It was very relevant. Nowadays, it's a different world. We're now back to the basics, right? We're back to, what are you capable of accomplishing? It means more than having an MBA or a college degree. So don't think you have a college degree or you have an MBA that makes you valuable. There's many people that have college degrees. There's many people who have MBAs. So because there's so many people who have those certificates, it's very common. So it makes it less valuable. Now, what is very valuable today is people that are able to accomplish certain jobs that aren't common to find. For example, electricians, plumbers, very hard to find. People who write code, they're hard to find. Mechanics, they're hard to find. So people who have a skill set that there isn't the enough supply to meet the demand have the value. So whenever you're looking to get a degree or get a certificate, you need to see what is the demand for this and what is the compensation for it. Because I was talking to someone, one of my students that I've had for 10 years, and he's like, oh, okay, I want to get a degree and I want to be a history professor. I was like, okay, that's fine. But understand, you're going to be getting all of this college debt, and you're probably going to make $35,000 to start in Florida, and maybe eventually get up to $40,000 or $50,000. And that could be your passion, and that's fine. But don't think you're going to be living as comfortable as you'd like to live with that degree. So know, whatever decision you make, what you get for it, right? So it's not a problem about making decisions of going to college and getting a degree for history and being a teacher. That's really a very honorable thing. But just understand what compensation comes with it and what lifestyle you're going to choose by having such a giving profession, you know? So next question we have that came in for the Q&A is, what does appreciation mean in a property? I get it a little. And also say, if I buy a duplex, do I take on a different loan? I can't see the rest of the question, but I get what you're trying to say. So what is appreciation? Appreciation is simple. You buy a property. I'll give you an example. I bought a property 10, 12 years ago, and I bought it for $160,000. From then to now, the property value went up. So when the property value goes up, that is called appreciation. So it was worth $160,000, and today it's worth $260,000. It appreciated in value. That is what appreciation is. So now you have $100,000 of appreciation or $100,000 of equity. It means the same thing, right? So now if you sell it, you would get the $100,000. Plus you've had the property for 10 years. So you've actually paid down the loan. So when you sell, you're going to get the $100,000 plus you're going to get the extra money that you put down. Plus you're going to get how much you paid down the loan, that money back as well. So you're going to walk away with a lot more money. And that's what appreciation is. Next point that would lead to this, right, is called forced appreciation. Forced appreciation is a way where you can get appreciation faster without having to wait 10 years. So what I do is I bought this most recent property. I bought it for like $900,000. And then I invested about $350,000 into the property. So that would bring me to about a $1.3 million into this property. Now, so regular appreciation, say like 10 years later, the property's worth $1.7 million. Forced appreciation means I invested money into it now and caused the price to go up. And because I made it nicer, and by making it nicer to increase the rent, I now have a more valuable property because it brings in more money. And because it brings in more money and it's more valuable, I forced the appreciation. So now by the time I'm done with this project, it's going to be worth probably close to $2.1 million. So I bought it for $920,000. I put in $350,000. I'm in for about $1.3 million, but it's worth $2.1 million now. So I forced appreciation of about $800,000. That is called forced appreciation. Now, again, 10 years from now, it'll probably be worth more like $3.1 million. So that's forced appreciation is something you did to cause it to go up, to force it up. And then there's regular appreciation that normally happens over time. And the normal appreciation that happens over time could be outside factors like, deflation or, devaluation of the dollar, the government printing more money. Another cause could be you buying in a good area and the area itself is going up in value, which is causing an appreciation to your property. So that is appreciation in a different way. Next question is, also, say if I buy a duplex, do I take on a different loan? You don't have to take on a different loan because if it's an owner-occupied duplex, you're just going to apply for as if you get a normal loan. And that's a great way to do things. My advice, that's how I did it. That's how I grew in a conservative fashion because I occupied one side, rented out the other side, remodeled the property, then got a tenant into the side I was in, and then moved on to the next property. And that is a great conservative way to grow. So great question, King. Great question. Let's see. Someone's asking to go live. Caleb is asking to go live. All right, so let's see what Caleb has to say. All right, so it looks like Cable's able to join. So Nicholas is asking, let me see. Okay, so GT asked a question here. What is the highest cap rates you've gotten on an investment? So back in the day when I would buy a property, I would care about initial cap rate, meaning what cap rate they're selling it to me at. And now that I've expanded my thinking and upped my game, and I'm in a different position, so I can I've been doing this for 15 years. So now I'm in a different position where I can do more difficult deals. And my initial cap rates, I would try to get something between 8 to 10%. And if even higher, even better. This is the trick with cap rates though. If you're getting a very high cap rate on a property, say you're getting 10, 12, 14, 15%, there probably means there's a lot of problems with the property. Maybe there's another deferred maintenance. You got to fix a lot of stuff. Or you're in a bad area where, yeah, you can get high cap rates if you're fully occupied, but there is in a low income area where people can't pay the rent, so you're constantly evicting people, or they're constantly breaking stuff. So that can cause cap rates to differ. So your cap rate should really be based off of the area that you're in and the condition of the property is in. Don't get caught up with just like, wow, this is an awesome cap rate, you know? Now, normally I look at what the cap rate is after I do my work to it. So my cap rates could be as high as like 20, 25%. But that's after me buying the property, fixing it up, doing my upgrades, and adding the value into it to get the higher cap rates. And that's why now I focus on what is a cap rate after I finish it. And more so, cap rate itself, I don't even look at that much. I look at more so what is the forced appreciation I can create to the property, and two, what is my COC, cash on cash return on the property. Because if I can get a great cash on cash return on a property, then that's really what I care about. Because I can get a property at a 12% cap rate, whatever, but I'm only getting 18% cash on cash, which is still very, very good. But if I can buy a property at a 6%, 7, 8% cap rate, and then make my COC at 26%, that's even better. Like, for example, this property I've been telling you in the downtown market. I bought it for $920, put in $350. My cap rate on this property when I bought it was a negative cap rate. It was a 0 cap rate. I mean, it didn't make any money at all. It was empty and it was in bad condition. But after I invested all the money and after I fixed it up, my end cap rate or my end COC is going to be like it's like 25.5%, which is phenomenal, right? It is, that means in 4 years, I'm going to get all my money back on an annual rental property, which is like sick. It's amazing return. Now, I'm also going to do the BRRRR method to this property. So I'm going to do a cash out refi, and I should be able to get about at least half of the money I invested into this property back. So that means after my refi, my COC is going to be 50% on this deal. That means in 2 years, I'm going to get all my money back on that project. That's a sick return. Imagine, hypothetically, every 2 years, I put in what roughly it's gonna be like $250 in the deal. After my refi, I'll have $250 in it. So that means I'm gonna make $125,000 a year on this property. And then if I do it again and again and again, that means in like 8 years I'll be pulling over $1 million in rental income off of annual rentals, not Airbnbs. So that's awesome, right? And then that's possible. When I started, I didn't make that much, right? It took me this long to get to this level, but it is possible if you're consistent and persistent. Great question, JT. All right, let's see. Next question. Oh, JT again. He says, have you done any JVs where you put up no money? Me, myself, no. I have not. Honestly, I've done all the deals by myself. I put up all my own money. I got my own loans. I basically done all my own remodels or managed my own remodels. I've not had any other partners. And that's kind of what makes me an expert in the field, because I understand the construction side, the rental side, the finance side, the money side. I understand every aspect of it, the full circle. So I'm able to make all of it work. Am I open to doing, right now I'm open to doing JV deals too. So now I'm switching it up because I want to start doing like 100 unit, 200 unit, 300 unit deals. So I'm willing now to take on JV partners. So if someone has a deal and they can't come up with the money, I'll front the money. Or if someone has the money but doesn't know how to do anything, I'll let them come in and join, and they can bring some money into my deals. Because when you start doing 300 unit deals, you need a lot of money. You need like $10 million. So I'm willing to bring in 5, 10 partners for each of them to bring in some money to try to make this deal get done. And the great part about real estate is this. the same thing I did when I did 1 unit. Well, I never did 1 unit. I did a minimum of 2 units. But the same thing I did a 2-unit deal is the same aspect. It's the same idea for you to do a 200-unit deal. It's literally the same, right? You're going to remodel 2 units. Now you're going to remodel 200 units. You made 2 units. You increase the rents from $600 to $900 a month. You're going to increase it again on the 200-unit deal from $600 a month to $900 a month. So it's a really great business because the basics work the same all the way along the way. That's why a lot of times when some people are meeting some of these super, super wealthy real estate investors, and they're like, wow, these people seem very ignorant. How do they seem so uneducated and are super wealthy? They're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm like, the basics don't change. You got to fix this unit up, make it nice, makes it functional, and you rent it out at a fair rate. That works the same on 1 unit, then the same on 100 units. So when you have that work ethic to make sure that you persist and you're consistent of growing and taking care of your clients, your tenants, you're going to grow. You don't need a high IQ. The problem, like Warren Buffett says, he said, you don't need a high IQ. If you actually have a high IQ, you need to give some away because you're overthinking the game. You don't need that much. You don't need to be a genius to make it work in finance and in the real estate game. Great question. Abe says, any good lawyers you know in Tampa for property partnership? I actually do know a few good lawyers. DM me. I can send you a couple of names of some lawyers that I work with, some real estate lawyers, and they'll be able to help you out. All right. Okay, so Ellen says, what exactly does CO rate mean? So CO rate, it's actually COC. If you're referring to what I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's COC. It's called cash on cash return, right? So cash on cash return is basically you buy a property, you put the down payment money, and you put up the money for renovations. That is the amount of cash you put into this deal. It could be, let's say, a $400,000 property. You put up the down payment money, and you put up some money to remodel it. So say the purchase price was $400,000, but then you put in renovation costs. But to the point, the cash portion is you put up as $100,000. Is your rate of return on your cash investment, which is really what matters. Because if you put up $100,000 and you're only making $10,000 a year on that deal, you're only getting a 10% cash on cash. And like states like New York, California, they have a very Washington D.C., lots of places in Washington State, they have a very low cash on cash, like a 10%. Sometimes even lower than that, cash on cash. But in Florida, you can get, if you're doing amazing deals, you can get cash on cash returns to be like closer to like 25%. Like this last deal I did. Obviously, I did a lot of work to get that type of money, but it's possible. And that means you're making 2.5 times the money on your same 100,000. So that's why COC kind of matters more than cap rate. Good question, Alan. All right, someone requested to go live. I am trying to add them. And that didn't work out either. All right, let's go to the next question. Okay, Savvy says, what books have you invested more towards real estate? I'm going to tell you about books you should read. That's what I think you're asking. So, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, amazing book. Intelligent Investor is also an amazing book. It will explain investing in general and mostly in the concept of stock market investing. But when you learn that concept and you understand what they're talking about, it will actually help you change the way you think. And that is what's going to help you apply those concepts towards real estate. So a lot of people are like, oh, you're a real estate investor. You're a real estate guy. I'm actually not a real estate guy. I'm a finance guy, right? And I apply financial concepts to real estate investing. And that's been very helpful for me. So it's all of this is finance investing. So if you can up your game up and just understand the concepts a little bit more, you can get a significant benefit. All right, someone requested to go live. Let's see if we can make it happen. All right, that didn't work. Let's try this one. I guess IG's having problems today. All right. Next question is, what were you doing at the age of 18? So Calvin asks, what was I doing at the age of 18? So what I was doing at 18 is I was basically working anywhere I could work, saving up as much money as possible, and I invested some of my money in stocks. I was flipping different stuff like video games, Pokemon cards, coins, basically that type of stuff. And I was just basically working a lot, and I was exercising a lot. So that was like my focus, in addition to like going to high school or going to college and whatever. So that was my focus. So this is one concept. Everybody young out there that's watching me, and even everyone that's old, this is an everybody concept. And when I changed this thinking, it changed my life. So we play these video games, right? Like, we play these video games and we have these avatars in the video game. And in the game, you increase the avatar's money, strength, like say if it's a magical game, there's like magical powers you can get, all these different things. And there's scales from 0 to 100. And you try to lift up each one of them. And I finally realized, because when I was really young, I used to play these games. And I finally realized, I'm spending hours, and my friends are spending hours playing these games. And in like 3 years, this game's not relevant anymore. We're playing a different game, and I got to re-up this new character, this new avatar. So I said, well, like in the Bible, in the movie The Matrix, it basically explains that the life we live right now is an avatar. This body we have is an avatar. So I could take my time and exercise and build up my strength in this avatar, in the real world. I can build up my mind by reading more books. I can build up myself spiritually. I can build up myself emotionally. I can build up my relationships. I can invest the time to build up different aspects of my life. And I can gain the best benefits in the real world, not just in this game world, right? And I will be able to have benefits from this for years to come, for the rest of my life. And what I figured out was there was these 5 pillars that lead you to a great life. And if any of these pillars are off, you're going to feel off in your life. So the pillars are spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. Because if you have any of these pillars off, you're going to feel like there's a disconnect and there's something missing in your life, right? So if you ever feel what's going on, why do I not feel complete? You're going to go and look at these pillars and see which one's missing. Now, what ends up happening with a lot of people is they end up lifting up that financial pillar, and they're like, man, I got a lot of money now, and I'm so unhappy. Well, look, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. So a lot of people, when they get a lot of money, they finally feel like, I want to teach. I want to give back, you know? That's an option. You know, you have to go and spend the time to build yourself up in more than one way. Because money, honestly, after you learn the game, isn't hard. But in any of these pillars, all of them take time to develop and grow. So like in any of these pillars, invest and you're going to reap the rewards. So I'm going to move on because I've been talking about this a lot. Let me get into the financial questions. Hey, it's Richard. So Richard Garcia, he's a really great page on IG. Let's see if he can join.
Yo, my
Yo,
boy.
what's up?
What's good, brother?
Everything. How you doing down there? How was your move?
Oh, from San Francisco?
Yeah.
It was good, brother. I mean, I've been here in Colombia now for, how long? Like 5 months? 4 months? 4 months.
Awesome.
It's money. I love it. I heard your pillars talk. Talk to me. What's the deal? Where'd you learn that from?
Huh?
Where'd you learn that pillars talk from?
Honestly, I kind of learned it from myself because, like, I would hit, like, certain levels. Like, I would have a lot of money, and then I was, like, not happy. And then I would miss, like, I used to be a competitive powerlifter. And then I would, like, get off track. And then I would get back to being a competitive powerlifter. And then I would get thrown off from education. I would get thrown off from, doing, going to church or, like, teaching Bible study. I'd get thrown off of doing these things. And I was like, it felt like something was missing. I wasn't complete. So I learned, I was like, what are the things that mattered to me and that affected my life? And I was like, all right, this is what affects me. And this is what I need to have a full life,
And so you practice that day in and day out, every single day of your life is what you're doing?
Not every day of my life, right? But I try to adapt it to my week, right? Because you can't, plus it's not healthy for you to, right now I'm back to competitive powerlifting again. You can't lift heavy 7 days a week. You do that like 3 days a week, And so so there's certain, like, you don't study every single day. Even when you went to college, you didn't go to class every day. You had time. So you have to carve out your week to say, I'm going to do this in the week. Now, again, every morning I have a routine where I am doing spiritual, mental, physical, financial things to grow, to prime myself, to warm myself up, to have an optimal day, and to just go out there and, just kill it. And, but then there's times I'll zone in and I'll spend 2 hours on this one topic so I can just up my game up on this one level.
So, one thing that I get asked all the time, and I'm sure you get asked the same thing, is like, how do you start, right? Like, how do you get to the next step in life where you go from this like average person to this above average person, even though you don't necessarily have the money yet, you still have the mindset, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing I talk about with my, on my lives, but I'd love to hear it from you because, I say this all the time, is like the three monetization cycles, right? Like, in order to transition out of your regular kind of employee mindset, I always talk about you have to have that 9 to 5 monetization, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go into your side hustle, right? Which is your after hours monetization. But mm-hmm. then in order for you to get to the level that you want to be at, which is that above average level, that's where you have to monetize while you're sleeping, right? So these three mm-hmm. separate lives that you're living each and every single day. And if you're not monetizing through all three of them, mm-hmm. then you won't really ever make it, right? That's the way that I see it, or at least how I saw it early on. And that changed my dynamic. And before I cut over to you, I wanted to throw it out there. Like, the way that I transitioned was I went from like this 9 to 5 person. Then I threw myself into this like after hours side hustle mindset where I was building up my business, my entrepreneurial kind of spirit, my habits, as you will, from my 9 to 5 monetization. And then that 9 to 5 and the combined side hustle allowed me to start buying real estate, right? And mm-hmm. buying real estate that's where I started monetizing while sleeping, right? So I was sleeping and monetizing. And in the sleeping monetization combined with the side hustle, those two replaced my working 9-to-5 income, right? So it like completely eliminated that for me. And I think that, you know, that transition was very there was no roadmap for that, at least not early on, right? So how did you start, and then how did you navigate? Because I know you went from corporate America just like I did.
Yeah. So one just to say, like, one book everyone should read. Again, it goes back to Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, because it goes through the different cycles you go through from what you were just mentioning. And I always kind of knew that concept that, you know, you're going to work for the rest of your life until you can find a way that you can make money while you sleep.
Right.
So, and that definitely helps a lot, because when you have a 9-to-5 that's giving you a W-2, it's way easier to get a loan to buy property. And for me, it was just like the concept of like, hey, I wanted to have a better life that I really want to just enjoy, would like to do stuff that I enjoy and not have to work 1,000 hours, right? And want to work when I want to work. So right now I'm spending like 60, 80 hours a week working on this project that's on my IG. And, you know, I love it. Like, I'm converting this property. It's going to be 16 Airbnbs. It has this great beachy cottage feel. I'm right by the water. And I love doing it, but I love doing it when it's my choice to do it. And I wanted to have that ability and the lifestyle to say, I'm going to do this when I want to do it. And like right now, I'm back to powerlifting. I want to do it. And I have the ability to just say, I'm going to go do it. And the other thing I'm doing now is I'm doing other stuff that I always wanted to do that I never had either the money for or the time for. And now I got myself to say, how am I going to have the freedom to do it? And I found ways to do it in the stock market, and I did very, very well. I was actually first in my class in finance, and I got the top returns in my class. But I found that the speed and the consistency were outside of your hands. And with real estate, I found that they were within your hands to be able to scale quickly, to get higher returns, and to be able to, even though the market's not doing well, you can do well. Because, like, you know, the saying in real estate, you could buy real estate in the up market, down market, or sideways market and make money as long as you know what you're doing. So even though I'm telling people, be careful, the market's going to go down in the next year and a half, I'm still buying deals because I'm buying them in such a way where even if they go down, I'm going to make money. So that luxury to be able to have control over your finances and control over your life, and that freedom is really a beautiful thing, you know. And then by the more power and control you have over your finances and your time, gives you time and power over the other parts of your pillar, right? Your other pillars. You know, some people are out there working themselves crazy and can't take any time to go to the gym, can't take time to spend time with their family and other things. So it's really unfortunate. And I hope they find a way.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, right? Because I think there's also a you can over gym, right? And what do I mean by that? I mean like the time you spend is actually, it starts to become so valuable that if you go and over gym, or if you go and overspend time, I know that this sounds a little bit messed up, but if you overspend time with your family or friends, or you overspend time on things that aren't going to help you monetize to get to where your ultimate goal is, then that could potentially hurt you in the long run, right? And over time, the compounding effect of all of that wasted time, or maybe not necessarily wasted, but just uncalculated, ends up being problematic, right? Because you didn't monetize on that time, you weren't able to use it to scale, and it does compound. I think time, from what I hear from you, is the same thing I say, is like time is a commodity, right? And it's the most important aspect of being an investor.
And to add to what you're saying, you can invest, right? Like when I was younger, I was ridiculously aggressive on my investing. And what I've found now, I am super picky.
Yeah.
I'm very, very picky. And people are like, wow, you have such amazing deals. I'm like, yeah, because I look through 1,000 or 10,000 and I pick one. You know, I only pick fire deals because I want to make sure that this deal or this project isn't ever going to cost me, maybe make me some money, but cost me way more time and take away from the other pillars, right? Because there is a balance. And right now in this market, there's not always great deals out there. So you have to be very careful to just be picky and to make smart decisions. So, you know, I'm just trying to like, that's why I tell a lot of people, you need to spend your time to study. You need to study your market and be an expert in it. Because if you're going to buy, you need to make sure you're making a smart decision, because you don't ever want to make a decision like, say again, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. You don't want to be in a relationship and not be in the right relationship where it costs you your emotions. And you don't want to be in the bad real estate deal or financial deal of any type and cost you financially. So there sometimes can set you back. So yeah, overdoing it, you know, is not a smart idea in any aspect.
You know, one thing, BK, that I noticed is that beginners tend to have this very common trait. And this very common trait, most beginners never shake it off, and they stay beginners for the rest of their lives because of it. And that's that they have two separate identities, right? They create these two different identities, which is their working life identity and then their personal life identity, right? And they never want to bring those two identities together because they feel as though those identities need to be separate, right? It's like the work-life balance concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that the wealthiest people in the world, they don't have that concept in their mind. They have one identity. They bring forth both of those identities together and they merge them, right? So like when you were talking about vacationing, when I thought about vacationing, I thought about to myself early on, I was like, man, I want to get away from work, right? And now I think about it as, where can I go to do work and enjoy work while I'm vacationing, right? To bring both of those worlds together, to have my children see that I'm not only enjoying them and they're enjoying me, but they're also seeing, wow, my dad is doing something that involves monetization, that he's creating, you know, more value for us as a family, as a whole. And he's not doing it behind closed doors. He's not leaving the house to go and do it. He's doing it in front of us. And that's the idea I would love for them to kind of, you know, bring forth and, of course, adopt, right? Because naturally, you don't want them to have two different identities. No one feels comfortable with two separate identities, right? Like, to leave your house every morning and kiss your child goodbye, to then go be this different person at work for 9 hours, to then come back home and become that person again and recalibrate your mind to being this person, it's such a hard thing to do, to live with, right? And so why would you want to do that when you can merge these two identities together? That's why you see these rich guys on the golf course, or they're on vacation and they're putting, but they're also talking about business because it becomes their natural identity. And it's also easier to do business that way as well, is what I realized. It's like, man, it just comes off more, it comes off more natural than going out and having to be this certain person for a certain amount of hours in the day, and then this other person in certain amount of hours in the day. I think that just, you know, I was hearing your vacationing thing, so I was like, man, that brings up a point, because as a beginner, I would have loved to hear that early on, right? I would have loved to have been told, yo, stop pretending that you have these two separate identities. You're one person. Be that one person. Be at peace and also bring, and then be the better and best person you possibly can as a unified individual, professionally, personally, right? Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned the cash flow quadrant, because that's a kick-ass book, right? Like that's one of the best
the cash flow quadrant. Yeah.
The cash flow quadrant is one of the best books. I honestly think that the Millionaire Fastlane was the thing that actually shifted me into a different direction, right? By MJ DeMarco, which I read that book and I've read it 3 or 4 different times now. And every time I read it, I get deeper and deeper. It's kind of like when you watch a movie, right? And you watch it the first time and then you're like, you know what? Shit, I'm going to watch it again. And then you watch it again and you're like, man, now I really understand the plot. And then the third time you watch it, you actually remember the words. It's the same thing with, with this book. It's like I read it 3 or 4 different times, and every time I got deeper into it, and it just started to ingrain in me. And one of the things that I've told a lot of the people that I talk to about real estate is you have to teach others in order to teach yourself, right? Like you go on here every single day, or on social media, and as do I, and we have our brands. And we are teaching others, but we're also learning at the same time through teaching, right? It's so powerful. And in order for you to be a master of something, you need to be a master of something by explaining it, right? By being able to explain it in the best way possible that other people can understand it. What have you learned in social media and bringing people information and advice? Because you do this every day, right? So what have you learned? I don't know that many people ask that question.
But I basically agree with you that in the aspect of knowledge and learning, there is difference from when you're learning, absorbing, and then you have a knowledge level enough to be able to then teach. Right. And there's a learning aspect. You actually learn more when you become the teacher as well. So basically, I honestly learned that I was very fortunate to start absorbing at a very young age, and a lot of stuff became second nature to me. And a lot of people have not been fortunate enough to be able to have that exposure and to have that desire to absorb at such a young age. So a lot of things that come second nature to me, like some of the questions I get in my DM are like what I call like alphabet. Like people will ask me a question and they're basically asking me the financial ABCs. And I'm like, man, I literally can't teach you the ABCs through the DM. Like I literally don't even have the time to teach you that. I mean, I've made these videos, please watch the videos. I made these YouTube, please watch the YouTube. Absorb it because there's all these nuggets in there. There's going to build a concept. These books I told you to read those books, and then come back to me with now that you know the ABCs, now try to form financial sentences and try to do something there where you can actually apply something, or like, hey, what's my next step? I did this, what do I do next? And that's why I do these lives, is so I can actually give people answers so they can actually apply some of the concepts that are just a little fuzzy. Kind of like in college where they said, read the chapter before you come to class. So when you're in front of the professor, you actually ask him questions based off the chapter. That way they can actually build and grow. So what I learned is people right now have such a small base of knowledge that like they'll be like, oh, I want to buy my first property. What do I do? I'm like, well, what do you mean? What do you do? Give me a more detailed question and I'll tell you exactly what to do. Exact step. What step are you on? They're like, well, I don't know. I haven't done anything yet. And I'm like, wow, okay. You need to do all of these things first before you jump in, because, if they jump in and buy a bad property and they overpay and, they're not cash flowing, but they're so in love with the property that they make a bad decision, it can really cost them, because then they might end up going bankrupt, getting a foreclosure, and having 7 years to have to repay for that mistake. So, study, watch the videos, read the books, and study your market. That is what's going to really help people the most. And that's what I really found, that the help that people need is more education and more exposure.
100%. Yeah, I mean, what would you say to the person that, is just beginning, right? They always send you this message, right? They say, how much money do I need to start?
I mean, literally, you could have no money to start. I mean, right. So like, it's really about your ability. But if you're gonna, then the next follow-up question, the next question is, how do I do that? Listen, if you're asking me, how do I do that? That's the first problem. Because if you don't know how to do it, Me telling you can do it shouldn't be like, oh, okay, 1, 2, 3, and it's done. No, it is a process, because if you do it the way and you have very little to no money involved, your exposure is so great that it is a huge, if it goes wrong, if it goes sideways, the repercussions are going to be very bad, right? If you have enough money to put down 30% on a deal, the odds are the chance of that deal going bad is a lot less likely, right? Where if you're putting no money in a deal, the odds of it going bad are very high.
Correct.
So you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the last deal I bought for 920, I only put down 10%. So I prefer putting down as least as possible. But you have to know you can't be playing with a gun and not know how to use it. Like it can be very dangerous, right? Credit, debt can be positive if it's used positive. It can be negative if it's used in a negative fashion. So you just have to learn and study to get to the level where you can teach this stuff to other people. And then you're like, okay, now I'm ready. I can do it myself.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, like, for example, Grant Cardone, right? Cardone Capital. And you know that these guys, like, what they do is they give information, but then in the end what they say is, give me your money and I'll invest it for you, right? And investing it for you, from what at least I understood doing this for a long time now, is that when you give somebody else your money, you don't actually learn how to fish. Somebody has to feed you fish every time, right? And there becomes this issue later on, right? This generational issue where what you just did will no longer now pass down to your next generations. And because you didn't learn something valuable, right? You trusted in somebody else to do it. But if Cardone Capital says, this is the last day I'm going to be doing this, nobody else is going to be investing with me anymore, and I'm going to give you guys all your money back and it's done. Well, what did you really learn, right? The only thing you learned was how to be dependent upon whatever Cardone gives you, right? But he didn't actually teach you anything throughout the process. You didn't build a network of real estate professionals. You didn't know how to find deals. You didn't understand how much money you needed to save. You did all these things that, or you didn't do all these things that were really essential for your well-being, and that you could then teach to a future generation. I have kids, right? So for me, and you have kids too. So for us, it's like, it isn't just about us learning anymore. Now it's about, like, how can they learn too, right? How can they understand as well and take that with them, so that, man, my grandfather, Richard, showed my dad that showed me, right? And that's a very powerful thing. And it would be, awesome to see that legacy continue on. I'm sure that's what you're trying to build as well. But it's the dependency mindset that I think people have, like, ingrained in themselves over time, right? Where they invest in these 401ks, they're dependent, right? They invest in these accounts, these index funds, et cetera, they're dependent, right? They're dependent on other people doing the work for them, but then they're not learning how to do it themselves. So you mentioned education. Is the first exact place you would go as a beginner, is that books, or is it a mentor, or is it something else? What is it that you kind of give advice on?
I'm going to kind of go back to, like, my 5 pillars. When you go to 5 pillars, you can sometimes make one pillar super strong and then try to build up the rest. But it's usually best if you build up all of them as you go, progressive. So I wouldn't say just read books or just watch videos or just anything. You need all of them. Because if you get a mentor and you don't have any prior experience, you can't tell if your mentor knows what he's talking about. Because I've met people in the past when I was newer, and I would listen to them talk, and I'm like, I already know you don't know what you're talking about, because I've talked to other people and I've read other books, and you're so contradicting, it doesn't make sense. Like, you are obviously so off base. So you need to do everything, right? You need to do everything. And this is the point is, not everyone is going to be a real estate investor. Not everyone has the time, the luxury, or the desire to, right? Like, I literally, if you see my videos, I'm in it myself. I will take the jackhammer and start breaking down the slab. I will throw out the dirt. I'll do the labor because I did it when I was younger. I'm not afraid to get dirty. And I kind of like it sometimes, you know, because it feels like I've accomplished something. And when I do it, all the other people working on there are like, shit, the boss is doing it. I better work too, because, you know, he's working, I'm going to work. And everyone has that sense of, you know, we're all in it together. FYI, guys, I think we only have a few more minutes left before the time's out. The timer no longer works on IG, so I can't tell when it's going to time out, just in case it ends quick. But to the point is, even so, maybe you're not going to be an investor, but at least you know enough from studying that when you do team up with somebody else, you know who's right and who's wrong, right? Because syndication is not a new thing. In syndication, there's 1,000 people doing it. FYI, Cardone Capital, I wouldn't do it. They only give you like a 3% return on your investment. That's like sad. That's like really bad, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I ran my numbers, and if someone teamed up with me, they would be making like 8% on their dividend. And that's not even counting what they would get when we sold the property. So I'm like, if I can offer that, how the hell can you not offer that? So I'm like, their fees must be like crazy expensive. So I'd be very careful. So with like investing in anything, if you're going to invest with, like for BlackRock, I used to invest with BlackRock, and I invested with them and I bought into them in the beginning because I knew the person who ran BlackRock was like phenomenal, right? Like he is one of the best investors of our time. And he obviously screwed me because back in 2011, he bought billions of dollars in foreclosed property when I was trying to buy more, and he made the profit, the cost of real estate jump like 20% in that like 1 year, just for how much money how much assets they were picking up. So yeah, if you know the game, like any sports game, you know what player is good. So, and sometimes you're gonna be like, look, I'm not gonna be the best basketball player, but I'm gonna definitely cheer for the team that's gonna win because I know this player is the best. I know this coach is the best. I know this team is the best. So yes, you should learn. Not everyone's gonna do it, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it either. You should definitely do it. But when it comes to a certain point, that might not be your life, right? At the end of the day, I have a passion for this. It seems like you have a passion for this. Someone might just want to be some history teacher, and they want to make sure they have enough money to retire with as well. So there's a combination where they should get a mentor in addition to reading, in addition to watching, right? So they are knowledgeable, right? They have a knowledge base to do it. And they want to do themselves, that's awesome. I'm all for it because I try to teach, you know, beginners how to do it. And if they don't want to do it themselves because they have this high paying job, like, you know, you used to work for Tesla and all those big companies, and you love it, you know, well, keep doing that. And then invest in real estate as well. And then you could do what you love and still have a great financial future as well. And if you one day want to leave, you can go do your own startup because you've done so well with real estate. So the flexibility, the ability to do what you want and love, whatever it is what it really should be about. You know, and I support anybody with whatever they want to do, whichever way they want to do it and how they want to look at it, right? So I learned one thing. Not everybody's like me. Not everyone thinks like me, have the passion that I have. So, in that, you know, so I just want to kind of help as many people as possible to grow as much as possible for as much as they want to grow. So, I mean, I think you probably experience the same thing where you've given people amazing advice and you're like, wow, you just took the opposite of what I just told you. You know? So, you know.
Baskal, brother, you're the man. I was sitting here and I was watching Billions and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna see if BK's on. And I saw that you were on and I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can chime in, talk to my boy. We haven't talked for a little while, man.
Yeah.
How's everything else going? You good?
Beautifully, right? Beautifully. Oh, I got 1 minute left, guys, just so you know. Oh, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, IG every week. 9 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube every week. Come ask questions. Check out my YouTube page, link in the bio. Thank God everything's good. You know, it's a favorite time of year. I love Christmas. Got the tree up, got my lights up. I'm happy. Thank God, you know. I'm living the life I want to live. I'm very grateful, and I know I'm very blessed. So I'm just very grateful, thankful.
Guys, this is a good guy. He's a great teacher, great motivator, great mentor.